So this week's assignment for week 7 was designing your instructional model. So this is my instructional model by me, Michael Howell. Part 1 was a digital storyboard. So in part 1, I created a digital storyboard for an introductory lesson on early Cold War. And this was for 10th grade world history. This is the class that I've been wanting to and hopefully will get to teach. So the storyboard walks through a short learning scenario that starts off with a current news clip about, for example, U.S.-Russia tensions, and then moves into student journaling, group discussion, and an orient creation task. And this approach demonstrates brain-based instruction by focusing on emotional safety with low-stakes entry points, and then using relevance to capture attention right away instead of passive listening. So students actively process information through multiple senses. As I learned in week 1, attention acts as a gateway to learning. So when motivation and relevance are missing information, and it never makes it into their long-term memory. So my storyboard tries to fix that common problem. Next, we have the motivational strategies organizer. So for part 2, I focused on a fictional student named Jordan, also a 10th grade student who finds history boring and is disconnected from his life. And he has strong verbal skills, enjoys current events, but every time the textbooks or lectures comes out, he kind of just doesn't pay attention or isn't focused or just isn't interested in it. So I created a visual organizer that highlights 3 key brain-based learning principles. So emotional safety, relevance, engagement with active processing. And the organizer shows how calm check-ins, safe failure options can reduce anxiety, how connecting history to modern globalization sparks intrinsic motivation, and how simulation and student creations build confidence and neuroplasticity. So these strategies work because they address Jordan's lack of relevance and learn helplessness. When students see meaning and have some control, dopamine helps drive deeper engagement. Next, we have the student commitment to learning plan. So in part 3, I revised a traditional Cold War introduction lesson to give students real ownership. The original lesson was mostly teacher lecture and note-taking with very little student input. So my revised plans includes a clearer with more meaningful goals, so students will analyze the causes of the World War and evaluate those tensions and how they still affect the world today. I added a current events hook, so a commitment card where each student writes one personal goal and why it mattered to them, and choice in which primary source to analyze, and choice in how they're learning as well. So we finished with a short reflection on whether they meet their goal, and this boosts confidence. This boosts executive functioning and engagement because students practice planning their own learning and feel the work actually belongs to them, instead of being something from the teacher forces on them. And then the learner toolkit and tool to support making sense of learning. So my learner toolkit includes 3 practical that addresses different parts of the brain. So the first is simple graphic organizers to reduce visual overload and help with cognition. Second, short movement or breathing breaks to support emotional regulation and the motor system. And third, a calm choice area with flexible seating for students who need a break from overstimulation. So for this part, I created a connection map graphic organizer, and students place a historical event in the center and branch out to the causes, effects, modern parallels, and personal reflections. This tool helps students build schemes, patterns, and reflect deeply instead of just memorizing facts. It makes the learning process visible and strengthens long-term understanding. And then the feedback storyboard. So I designed a feedback storyboard around a lesson on the Treaty of Versailles and its role in the rise of Hitler. The storyboard shows 4 key steps: deliberate practice with a graphic organizer, specific teaching feedback while circulating, quiet student reflection, and then revision with a partner share. So for example, instead of, I might say, you got the facts right about the reparations, now let's think about how that debt affected regular families in Germany or something like that. Students then can reflect on what felt clear and they want to improve. This practice feedback reflection loop strengthens memory through retrieval and builds metacognition. It helps the students see that learning improves over time rather than being a one-shot deal. And pulling it all together. So putting everything together, my brain-based instructional model rests on 5 essential strategies: emotional safety routines like check-ins and safe failure options, relevance hooks that connects history to students' world today, student choice and commitment cards for ownership, active processing tasks such as simulations and creations, and then feedback and reflection loops supported by graphic organizers. So one planning tip I would give myself for the future is always start with planning by asking, how will this feel relevant and emotionally safe to my students? And then build everything backwards from there. A good performance task to apply the full model could be the Modern Echoes project, where students research one Cold War event and create a short presentation or role play showing its effects and influence on today's world, including a reflection on their own learning process as well.